Marcus Avery hadn't been inside a library in years, not because he didn't like them, because he did. Libraries were one of the few places that still felt like they belonged to everyone. Quiet, free, no one asking you to buy something to exist there. When Marcus was a kid, the library was where he learned to disappear into stories and come back out feeling stronger. But adulthood had a way of shrinking your world to work, errands, and exhaustion. And after his divorce, Marcus's weeks became a loop of pickups, drop-offs, and trying to prove to his 8-year-old daughter that life was still stable. That's why he came to the Riverview Public Library on a Saturday morning. For Kira. Kira had a school project on Black inventors, and she wanted real books, not just websites. She'd said it with a serious face, like she was making a grown-up decision. "I want the kind you can hold," she'd told him. "The ones that smell like learning." Marcus smiled at the memory as he parked and walked toward the glass doors with Kira skipping ahead, braids bouncing, backpack swinging. Inside, the air was cool and faintly dusty, like paper and carpet, and silence had a smell. Families moved between aisles. Kids whispered too loudly. A librarian shushed someone gently. It felt normal, safe. Marcus checked out 4 books at the self-service kiosk. He did everything clean, scanned each barcode, watched the screen confirm, tucked the books into a tote bag so the corners wouldn't bend. He'd learned to be careful with public property because he'd learned people assumed the opposite when you weren't. One of the books, an oversized hardcover, had a worn dust jacket and a faint crease on the back, but Marcus noted it and kept going. Books were used. That was normal. They spent the afternoon at home reading together. Kira traced pictures with her finger, asking questions. Marcus felt proud in a quiet way, proud that she wanted to learn, proud that he could give her that. By Monday evening, Kira had filled out her project notes. She hugged the biggest book like it was a trophy. "Can we go back tomorrow?" she asked. "We'll return these first," Marcus said. "Then we can get more." Tuesday after work, Marcus drove to the library alone. Kira was with her mom that night, and Marcus wanted to drop the books off before the due date because overdue fees were one more thing he didn't want hanging over him. The return slot was inside the front entrance, next to the circulation desk. Marcus walked in with the tote bag and headed to the return station. He pulled each book out and checked the covers quickly. Habit. The big hardcover still had the same crease. Nothing ripped, nothing stained, nothing worse than when he borrowed them. He slid the books into the return slot one by one. Each time, a small camera above the slot clicked softly, part of the library's new automated check-in system. Marcus had noticed it the first day, but didn't think much about it. It felt like standard security, proof of returns, protection from disputes. He didn't know he'd need it. As Marcus turned to leave, a voice called from behind the circulation desk. "Sir." Marcus stopped and turned. A white woman in her 50s stood behind the desk, glasses on a chain, cardigan buttoned to the top. Her nameplate read, "Pam, Circulation Supervisor." She wasn't smiling. "Can you come here a moment?" Pam asked. Marcus felt a small tightening in his chest. "Sure." He walked to the counter, hands visible, posture calm. Pam looked down at something on her desk, one of the books Marcus had just returned. The oversized hardcover. She held it like it was evidence. "This was checked out on your account," Pam said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "I just returned it." Pam turned the book over and pointed at the back cover. There was a tear in the dust jacket, an ugly rip near the bottom corner. Marcus frowned, leaning in. "That wasn't there when I returned it." Pam's eyebrows lifted slightly, as if Marcus had said something predictable. "It's here now," Pam replied, "and it wasn't noted at checkout." Marcus went still. He remembered the crease. Not a tear. He kept his tone calm. There was a crease, not a rip like that. Pam's voice cooled. We have to charge for damage. It's policy. Marcus stared at the tear, feeling anger rise in his throat. He didn't do that. He would have noticed. He was the type of person who checked. He forced his voice to stay even. Can you check if it was already damaged in the system? Sometimes staff notes it. Pam tapped her keyboard, eyes on the screen. No notes. Marcus swallowed. Then it must have happened after I returned it. Pam's eyes narrowed. You returned it 2 minutes ago. Marcus held her gaze. And it went through the slot. Anyone could have handled it after that. Pam's lips pressed together. Sir, books don't rip themselves. The sentence landed like an accusation disguised as logic. Marcus felt the familiar sting, being spoken to like he was trying to get away with something. He kept his voice calm. I'm not saying it ripped itself. I'm saying I didn't cause that tear. Pam leaned forward slightly, voice firm. It was checked out to you. It's your responsibility. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's also your responsibility to verify condition at checkout, and your return system has a camera above it. Pam's eyes flicked, just briefly, toward the return slot. Marcus continued, still controlled. If your system took a check-in photo, it will show the condition when I returned it. Pam's expression hardened. We don't pull footage for every claim. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He simply said, then pull it for this one. Pam stared at him for a long beat, then glanced toward a younger staff member behind her. White guy in his 20s, wearing a library badge and looking uncomfortable. His name tag read, Josh, circulation. Pam snapped, Josh, did you check this in yet? Josh looked at the book, then at Marcus. Not fully. It came through the slot. Pam's eyes narrowed. She spoke to Marcus like she was explaining something to a stubborn child. Sometimes damage isn't noticed until check-in. Marcus held steady. Then the check-in photo matters even more. Pam's mouth tightened. Sir, if you're refusing responsibility, we can suspend your borrowing privileges until the replacement fee is paid. Suspend. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Not because he cared about borrowing privileges, but because he heard what that meant for Kira, for her project, for the promise he'd made. The library is for you too. He forced his breathing to stay slow. Pam, Marcus said quietly, I'm not refusing responsibility. I'm asking for fairness. There's a camera above that slot. Pull the check-in photo from the moment I returned it. Pam's eyes narrowed. We don't... Marcus cut in, calm but firm. You're accusing me of damage. So yes, you do. Or you're charging me based on assumption. The lobby felt quieter. A couple patrons glanced over, then looked away quickly. Josh shifted behind the desk, uneasy. Pam stared at Marcus like she was deciding how far to push. Finally, she said, clipped, Fine. She turned sharply and walked toward a back office door. Josh, she said, bring up the return feed, now. Josh swallowed and moved to a computer terminal. Marcus stood at the counter, heart pounding but face steady, watching Josh click through menus. Because Marcus knew something important. If the book tore inside the return bin, or if someone yanked it wrong after he left it, the camera would show the truth. And if it didn't, then the accusation would stick. Marcus didn't want to win an argument. He wanted to protect his name, because he'd learned that once a place labels you careless, it follows you, even into rooms that claim to be public for everyone. Josh's screen loaded something. He leaned closer, his eyes widened slightly. Pam returned from the back office and saw Josh's expression. What? She demanded. Josh hesitated. The check-in photo. It's here. Marcus's pulse thudded. Pam leaned in, and whatever the camera had captured was about to decide whether Marcus walked out as a father who kept his promise, or a man paying for damage he didn't cause. Josh turned the monitor slightly away from the public side of the counter, instinctively protective of staff view. But Marcus could still see enough. Bright interface, a thumbnail image grid, timestamps along the side. Pam leaned in close, glasses sliding down her nose. "Pull it up full," Pam ordered. Josh clicked, and a larger image opened. It was a still photo from the return slot camera, the moment the oversized hardcover passed under the lens. The book was captured mid-drop, angled slightly, Marcus's hand visible at the edge of the frame releasing it. Marcus leaned forward just enough to see clearly, keeping his hands on the counter so no one could accuse him of reaching for the screen. Pam stared hard. Josh said quietly, "This is the check-in photo from 6:18 p.m. Pam's eyes moved over the back cover, the dust jacket corner, the place where the tear now existed. Marcus's heart hammered, but his face stayed controlled, because the photo showed it. The corner in the image was creased, yes, but the dust jacket was intact. No rip, no jagged tear. The edge was clean. Marcus felt a slow exhale leave his body, like his lungs had been locked for a minute, and only now remembered they could open. Pam didn't speak right away. She zoomed in with the mouse wheel. The image enlarged, pixel by pixel, until the corner took up most of the screen. The dust jacket corner was still unbroken. Josh swallowed. "It doesn't look torn there." Pam's mouth tightened. Marcus kept his voice calm. "So it happened after I returned it." Pam's eyes flicked to Marcus, quick, sharp, then back to the screen as if she could force it to contradict him. She clicked to the next photo in the sequence. Another still, seconds later. Same book now lower in the slot, about to disappear into the bin. The corner was visible again. Still no tear. Josh's shoulders rose slightly, tense. "It's clean." Pam's jaw flexed. Then she snapped. "Show the check-in photo after it landed. Sometimes the camera catches it inside." Josh clicked again, pulling up a third still. Book inside the bin, partially visible through the slot opening. Not as clear, but clear enough. Marcus watched Pam's face change. Because even in that grainier image, the dust jacket corner looked intact. Pam went very still. The room around them felt quieter, like sound had been turned down. Marcus didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He just stood there, steady, letting the proof speak. Pam finally looked at Josh. "So how is it torn now?" Josh's voice came out careful. "It could have happened during sorting." Pam's cheeks flushed, anger looking for somewhere safe to land. She reached for the book on the counter and flipped it over again, staring at the tear like it personally offended her. Then she looked at Marcus with a tight expression that tried to hold authority. "Well," Pam said, "the photo shows it wasn't torn at the slot." Marcus waited. He didn't help her. Pam's voice lowered a notch. "So, it must have happened after." Marcus nodded once. "Yes." Pam pressed her lips together, then said stiffly, "We'll remove the damage charge." Marcus held her gaze, calm. "And the suspension threat?" Pam's eyes narrowed slightly, embarrassed. "There will be no suspension." Josh cleared his throat softly and looked down at his keyboard. Marcus didn't move away yet. He'd learned that people would fix the number and still leave the stain if you didn't make them clean it properly. "I want a note on my account," Marcus said quietly. "That the check-in photo confirmed the book was returned without the tear." Pam's eyes sharpened. "That's not necessary." Marcus's voice stayed even. "It is, because you already said you could suspend my privileges. I don't want the next staff member seeing damage dispute and deciding I'm a problem." Pam stared at him. Josh glanced up, then down again. Pam exhaled sharply through her nose. "Fine." She turned to Josh. "Add a note." Josh typed, "Careful now." Marcus watched the cursor move, watched Josh pause to choose words that couldn't be twisted later. Then Josh said softly, "Done." Pam slid the book back behind the counter as if she wanted it out of sight. Marcus felt relief, but it wasn't clean relief. It came with the bitter awareness that if the library hadn't installed that camera, or if the photo had been unclear, he would have paid. Not because he did damage, because someone decided he did. Pam looked at him again, her tone clipped, but less sharp than before. "You can go." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you." He turned to leave. But as he stepped away from the counter, he heard Pam speak again, quiet, directed at Josh, but not quiet enough. "Be more careful in sorting," Pam said. Josh replied, almost inaudible, "Yes." Marcus paused for half a second. Not to confront, just to let the moment register in his own body. Because earlier, careful had been something Pam demanded from him. Now it was something she was instructing her own staff to be. He walked out of the library into the evening air, feeling both vindicated and tired. On the drive home, his phone buzzed, Kira's mom texting, "Did you return the books?" Marcus stared at the message for a second, then typed back, "Yes." All good. He didn't add the rest. Because Kira didn't need to carry this. Not yet. That night when Kira came over, she ran to Marcus with her project notes. "We can get more books tomorrow, right?" Marcus smiled and knelt to her height. "Yeah," he said warmly. "We can." Kira beamed. "Good, because I like the library." Marcus hugged her gently. "I do too," he said. And he meant it. But he also knew something now that he hadn't wanted to know. A place could be public. A place could be for everyone. And still, without proof, someone could decide you didn't belong, one accusation at a time. The check-in photo hadn't just saved him a replacement fee. It had protected his right to keep bringing his daughter back.